Don Tricker reverts to a rugby analogy to explain a fundamental difference between his new world at the San Diego Padres to his old environment with the All Blacks. Tricker left New Zealand Rugby after 8 years and 2 World Cup titles to become the Major League Baseball (MLB) club's Director of Player Health and Performance a year ago. Back home in New Zealand recently, the man who coached the New Zealand Black Sox to 2 World Softball gold medals, says pro baseball is pretty much everything I thought it would be. I'm working with some really talented people in a very fascinating industry. The biggest difference is there are an awful lot more strategies around player trades and recruitment than we have in New Zealand. Read more. Tricker confirms baseball move. Daughter's softball tourney delays dad's MLB shift. San Diego Padres. Facebook. The San Diego Padres baseball stadium, Petco Park. Tricker, once hailed by Steve Hansen as the All Blacks' secret weapon, is not directly involved in the trade system but is learning plenty. The strategy is complex, particularly the high-stakes player exchanges. Imagine if the All Blacks had the ability to trade Beauden Barrett to England for a number of England's players. A MLB club has to ride a fine line between recruiting for immediate success without trading away their future. Padres third baseman Christian Villanueva fields a ball against the Oakland A's. San Diego finished last in the 5-team National League West Division in 2018, winning 66 of their 162 games. But Tricker says the Padres are ranked as having the best development setup or farm system in the game. That's what external people are saying. Every other team are after our talent. That tells us that we've got something valuable. A lot of teams are dangling a Kieran Reed, a proven experienced all-star, in front of us, he says. If we sign him, we could be very competitive for the next 2 or 3 years, but getting Kieran Reed would require us to give up 4 or 5 of our younger players who could drive our competitiveness for 10 years. The New Zealand Black Sox softball team listened to coach Don Tricker on their way to a world championship win in 2004. Major League Baseball is a billion-dollar business. The Padres' first baseman Eric Hosmer earns $21 million a year, but Tricker says the model is effectively the same as New Zealand Rugby. If you are going to be successful, there are really a few key things that you need to be good at, and it's about developing your environment to give you the best chance of being successful. Tricker says his approach at the Padres is the same as his modus operandi in New Zealand Rugby, who ask questions, primarily, around why are we doing this, and how does it fit with our strategic objectives. They recognize the value I bring to the Padres is that I'm not a baseball expert, I bring other things, he says. Only once have I had, "You've only been in baseball 5 minutes," thrown at me. I laughed at that, and said, that's exactly why I am here. I ask questions and try to link the question back to strategy. How is what we are doing getting us to where we want to be? It's exactly the same as it was with the All Blacks, for the San Diego Padres slide safe into third base against the Texas Rangers in 2018. Tricker says, a few Padres personnel know about his fast-pitch softball history, but I don't bring it up. I have an awareness of the game of baseball, but not from a technical perspective. From my softball background, I understand what they are trying to do. But I can't go in and coach hitting or pitching in the baseball context. Tricker says it was the same with rugby, where his outside perspective became a strength rather than a weakness. It means I have no technical bias, and that allows me to be able to ask more appropriate questions about how what we are doing aligns with where we are going. Ian Desmond, R, of the Colorado Rockies dives home to score from third ahead of a tag attempt by San Diego catcher Austin Hedges. One of the big traps in technical bias is going back to your playing days, Tricker says. Coaches then risk basing their philosophy on what they would have done, rather than focusing more on athletes' current needs. By doing so, they were essentially being disrespectful to the athlete. Tricker says there are big opportunities to improve our coaching approach in professional baseball by being more player-centered. New Zealand lacks the sporting mass, and coaches need to be more attuned to their athletes. But, in American sport, there are hundreds waiting to take someone's place, so coaches are inclined to be more old school. Sox softball coach Don Tricker, L., and captain Jared Martin before their 2004 world title win in Christchurch. Respect is a cornerstone of creating a good culture, Tricker says. You can't have honesty without being respectful. The best way to do that is focus on them, and not on you. Tricker is in charge of overseeing anything that touches the athlete, including medical support, and also works at the coaching level, which requires close liaison with the Padres manager Andy Green and his major league coaching team. Green is very open to new ideas, and Tricker arranged for him to spend a week with the All Blacks before the England test at Twickenham last November. A lot of the things that we are looking to do in baseball, the All Blacks are pretty good at, such as practicing with intent, Tricker says. Rugby is all about using the week to get ready to perform on Saturday. In baseball, there are games every night, therefore, it can be difficult to bring the same level of intensity every night. Sometimes, there is intensity when you are playing, but not necessarily when you are playing every day. In rugby, it's more intent and less volume. In baseball, it's more volume, less intent. Tricker has also opened doors in San Diego for New Zealand Rugby personnel, including Crusaders coach Scott Robertson, to get a warts-and-all view behind the scenes of a MLB club. The one-time Kiwi softball outfielder got an early insight into the depth of talent in American baseball when he rocked up to Farm League spring training and went wow at the athletic ability of a bunch of 16 to 17-year-old middle infielders. We are just one of 30 clubs, Don Tricker with his former Black Sox coaching colleague Eddie Colhase, R., and former High Performance Sport New Zealand chief Alex Bowman, C., in 2014. Tricker says the recruiting environment in the United States is different to New Zealand. Baseball is competing with sports such as basketball and American football for talent. In a New Zealand context, rugby pretty much gets the pick of the most athletic kids in New Zealand. I'm not being disrespectful to the Black Sox, they are very good softballers, but if they were better at rugby, then they would probably be playing rugby. New Zealand's 5 professional rugby franchises also tend to have their natural player catchment areas. Tricker says if U.S. kids' ambition is to play Major League Baseball, generally, they don't care if they play for the Padres, the Dodgers or the Cubs, etc. That makes recruitment even more competitive. Anyone who's seen Moneyball, the book and movie based on the statistical analysis systems adopted by the Oakland Athletics under general manager Billy Beane, knows that every MLB club has its own research and development department. The Padres have a division devoted to tracking players at other clubs with potential trades in mind. They also have 3 scouting groups, one focused on professional players in each of the other 29-team system, one focused on amateur players, high school and college players in preparation for the annual draft, and another focused on international players from outside the U.S. Tricker is enjoying the razzmatazz of professional baseball events. Americans do sport better than anyone else in terms of an entertainment experience. They don't rely solely on what happens on the field. That's something New Zealand sport can leverage off. A big game is a big game, whether it's a Rugby World Cup final, or playing the Dodgers at Dodger Stadium. They bring a lot of pressure. I haven't experienced the MLB playoffs, but I suspect that's another level again. We've seen the very best players on the planet, in many sports, who have struggled with the pressure of the big occasion. The higher the stakes, the more pressure that goes with it. Tricker saw joining San Diego as an incredible opportunity to get involved in professional sport in the United States. I do believe I've been fortunate to work with some really smart people in New Zealand, and that has continued with the Padres. San Diego were about where we thought we would be in 2018, but should be a little better than we were last year. We will continue progressing, but we might be another year or 2 away from contending. Tricker joined on a 3-year contract and would like to still be around to see the fruits of the club's labors. But a lot of those decisions are outside my control. He's proud to be a Parurua product, but living in San Diego has its compensations, Tricker says. Just before coming home for Christmas, he came out of the Padres HQ after working on the end-of-year reviews and it was 25 degrees in the middle of winter. I just started laughing. They are starting to get used to my sense of humor, so when someone asked what was up, I said, you guys could have been from Minnesota, where it would have been freezing. San Diego's not a bad place. Stuff.